All right.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Petra Al-Sufi. I am the Outreach and Partnerships Manager at the Institute for Social Policy and Understanding. I'm also on the executive board of the Michigan Center for Civic Education. And I'm here with my colleagues, Jajan, this afternoon. I'm going to give them a chance to introduce themselves, and then we'll read the question. Well, and then we'll have the students introduce themselves and introduce their teacher, and then we'll jump into the question.
So good afternoon. My name is Deanne Wong. I'm a retired attorney and former judge. I'm on the National Board of Directors for the Center for Civic Education, and I live in Boise, Idaho. I'm happy to be here to see your smiling faces.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Maria Garnet. I live in Richmond, Virginia. I work as a policy advisor in the Virginia Department of Criminal Justice Services. Prior to that, I was a nonpartisan policy analyst, and I evaluated the performance of government programs for the Virginia General Assembly. This is my third year being involved with We the People, and I'm very, very excited to be with you today.
All right, students.
Hello, judges. We are the Massachusetts wildcard team representing the Williston Northampton School. My name is Edward Burgum.
My name is Belen Deckner.
I'm Sage Friedman.
Hi, I'm Lily Bruce.
My name is Zach Landon, and this is our lovely teacher, Mr. Gunn.
All right, welcome to all of you. Happy to have you here. And many, many years ago, I was in your, place as a student. So now I'm happy to have you. I'm going to read the question, and then you'll have 4 minutes to read your statement, and then we'll have follow-up questions. Okay. So the question is, Thomas Hobbes noted that life in the state of nature is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short. How has the human condition changed over time, and how is it that change reflected in our expectation of government? Should the principles of natural rights or classical republicanism guide policy changes designed to improve the condition of all people? And what are the most pressing domestic and global challenges facing Americans today and in the future? What policies can you suggest to address them? You have 4 minutes.
When Thomas Hobbes noted that life in a state of nature is solitary, poor, nasty, brutish, and short, he explained why people chose government over the freedoms in a state of nature. Human condition has shifted greatly because of the introduction of a government to protect natural rights. This leads to shifting priorities for the government since they decide what the most pressing issues are and apply them to contemporary national problems.
Hobbes argued that government should prevent chaos and improve its citizens' general welfare, but government priorities have changed. An example of this is the debate on whether or not the government should be able to make laws affecting women's health, which has emerged with the modern ability to provide abortions. Some Americans believe that the government should protect the rights of unborn fetuses, while others believe a greater focus should be placed on bodily autonomy.
As the human condition changes, so do the values that guide government policies. In order to improve the condition of all people, the principle of natural rights should guide policy changes. These natural rights principles are used in the American education system, which was created as an agent of individual opportunity, civic education, and cultural assimilation. While originally a system balanced between natural rights and classical republicanism, most education reforms today focus on using natural rights philosophy.
Parents have always had the choice to send their children to private or public school, ensuring their natural right to education while providing for each individual family's needs. However, reforms today offer charter schools and school choice, allowing individuals to pursue a best-fitted education due to the variety of options. Our federal system of education allows different regions to create a unique balance between the common good and individual rights in order to uphold their values.
The education debate is really an argument between capitalism and socialism. The public school system is a socialist enterprise, while private school follows the tenets of capitalism, with private ownership and competition rather than government control.
The COVID-19 pandemic is one of the most critical domestic and global challenges facing America at this time, and has revealed polarizing attitudes regarding mask mandates, vaccine distribution, and the national government's power. Former President Trump gave most of his responsibilities to the states, making the federal government secondary in the U.S.'s COVID-19 response. This reflects a decentralized government, and without unified mask wearing, social distancing, quarantining, and lockdown policies, his response did little to stop the spread.
Contrastingly, President Biden intends to give responsibility primarily to the federal government through nationally mandated mask wearing, vaccine distribution, and social distancing protocols. Trump said he was not going to participate in the World Health Organization, while Biden immediately rejoined and presented $200 million in financial support.
The issue of climate change is hard to solve on a local level, as it is a global concern. It requires various regions to put aside their differences in order to make change. An example of this is the Paris Accord that was rejoined by the US as an executive action from President Biden. This banding together of countries is necessary in the fight against climate change. The UN plays a crucial role in balancing the varying responsibilities between developed and developing nations, creating questions about the UN's role on global unity and if it should be revised to mirror the framers' revision of the Articles of Confederation.
Massive divides in the US have fueled misinformation. The divide between political parties, as well as the non-action that the filibuster promotes, causes ideological standoffs within Congress, which halt progress. This results in a massive distrust in our government.
In an article written by former CIA officer Robert Grenier about the insurrection at the Capitol on January 6th, he observed that the public outcry that the election was stolen implies citizens no longer have representation within their government. Mr. Grenier suggested that a neutral third party be in charge of assessing the legitimacy of the election. He also suggested that if we are to overcome the threat to democracy imposed by Trump, we must all earnestly engage in an effort to listen to others' ideas, no matter how daft they may seem. Thank you, judges. We are now ready for your questions.
Right, thank you so much. So you laid out the differences between how administrations have handled things and how the change in human conditions and the change in our circumstances are leading to different policies and so forth. So I'm going to ask you, in the current situation in the 21st century and all the challenges that we're facing today and the issues that you have laid out, from women's rights, global climate, all of it, what approach do you think is the most appropriate that the government should be taking to address all the challenges that we face, both domestically and internationally?
I believe that one of the most important approaches that we need to take is more global unity. So that means being a larger part of other global summits, such as the climate summit that happened very recently with President Biden and China. And I would also say that the United Nations plays a crucial role in this.
Yes, by rejoining the Paris Accord, President Biden made an action towards the climate crisis. And as a large government power within the global world, that was a huge step for our progress within climate change. We also have to think about the ideas of enlightened self-interest and thinking about, for the US, what are individual actions within governmental global politics, which would be beneficial for us.
I would also add on to that if we look at Trump's move to leave the World Health Organization, then Biden immediately rejoined, pledging $200 million. I think that shows a practical approach that shows an interest in global unity and a focus on international relationships, whereas Trump's is more of a interest with the country first.
Another way to emphasize on how unity is important is the distribution of COVID vaccines. Since COVID is such an international problem, we must consider countries that need it more than the US, and that distribution does not immediately go equally to each country, because some countries need it more than others.
So in your testimony, you talked about distrust in government, and you mentioned a possible solution of having a neutral third-party review. Can you give me some specifics about how that third-party neutral review would work, and how would the end result of the review, how would that be enforced or implemented? Give me some details. I mean, who would pick the third-party neutral reviewer, for one, and how would that work?
I think that the President Biden should designate some distinguished academics, hopefully bipartisan academics. You would want them to be bipartisan if they were examining the election closely. in order to go over the various claims by President Trump and other Republicans that the election was stolen and that there was serious misinformation and mishandling of ballots.
I also think that an important part of it would be having people from the Senate and the House in both parties come together as sort of a conference committee, and those people could also help to decide on the academics who would assess the legitimacy of the election.
I would also say that third party should be comprised of individuals who are the embodiment of civic virtue and place the country's best interest before that of their own personal interest. I think a committee comprised of people with that mindset would allow for something like that to function. Otherwise, it just would not be successful.
Thank you.
You talked specifically about how climate change, for example, is a problem that can't be solved at the local level because it is so global in nature. So on the flip side, can you talk to me about what types of problems can only be resolved at the local level in your view, or are best suited to be solved at the local level, and why?
So I think that one of the most important things that we need to solve on a local level would be civic education. So when we're talking about the education system, we have people like Darcy Ritchie talking about it and saying that there are certain things in education which are true and certain things that are not true. And there has to be a balance between allowing people to hear both sides of an argument, but to also hear certain facts with government. And that comes into play with the ideas of deepfake and QAnon and the ideas of how we should be providing a basis of good civic education to our citizens.
Article 4, Section 4 of the Constitution guarantees a Republican government for all of the states. And I think that it's there that we find the reasoning for why civic education needs to take such a precedence in our education system. For example, I think that even the We the People program has suffered from rollbacks in education due to the financial or economic downturn in 2008 that resulted in schools losing funding to attend the We the People event.
I would just add on to that quickly. There was a quote from Senator Coons recently saying that civic engagement is vital for the health of our democracy. And what he's saying has a direct correlation to what Edward was just speaking on, that it falls onto the responsibility of the government to create individuals who are civically engaged and who have a proper background to become the citizens of the future.
Another way to approach is that we have to deal with the difference in how much money each individual has or how much they make yearly, because we're people such as like Black citizens who might not be able to have as much as opportunities as maybe white students or other families that have more income. There's that big wage gap, which makes them their only option is public school, which because it's funded by the government, it might not get as much education as private schools.
All right, let me ask one more follow-up question. So it's a little bit clear that you favor more of a global engagement of our government. And of course, our government is engaged in, the spread of democracy or promoting democracy around the world. So with our democracy domestically still not 100% perfect, what are the advantage and disadvantage of the United States promoting democracy around the world when we're still trying to figure it out domestically?
I believe that the advantages are that the United States can help other countries to overcome their own challenges because we are a major world power. We have a lot of influence. We have a lot of wealth. In terms of like how much aid we can give other countries. But at the same time, I believe that if our military is used in those situations, we could have a detrimental impact.
I think a key example of this would be the Marshall Plan, in that following World War II, we feared the effects of the Soviet Union and communism, and also the fear of a possible depression as we had seen in the 1930s. And so we gave a lot of funds and nuclear warheads to Western Europe and specifically Western Germany to be able to help through in-line self-interest our own state.
We can also learn from other countries if we spread democracy on a more international level. We can use like how their experiences with democracy plays out, which can in turn help us improve our own democracy.
So I heard
I'm sorry,
folks that-
I need to, my screen froze but time had just elapsed. So
Oh, darn.
yeah,
All right.
I got to figure out how to get you guys back.
All right, so that was really nice. It was very clear that you guys, not only had a very strong opening statement, all of you participated not just in the reading of the statement, which is easy to do since you have time to practice, but in the follow-up questions. So you had a good understanding of the topic and the challenges that we were trying to address through our questions. And I felt very happy with how you gave supporting evidence and how you backed you balance between your personal opinion, but also supported it with reasoning and with historical and constitutional applications. The only thing I would have liked to see from a group like this is a little bit more difference of opinion. I would have liked to see that a little bit. Otherwise, I think you guys did really well.
So I very much enjoyed your testimony and presentation. I was able to follow along and determine that you pretty much answered the question. What the question I wanted to ask was that somebody quoted that falls on government to create good citizens. And I was going to ask some specific details about that, whether or not you believe that what should government do to create good citizens. But anyway, your answers to the cross-examination questions were pretty good, fairly detailed, young. And what that tells me is that you spent a lot of time thinking about your 4-minute testimony, which you correctly surmised would lead to particular cross-examination questions, and you were able to handle them fairly well. So I appreciated your presentation. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you all did a wonderful job. I find often when teams have 4 or more people, it can be more difficult for them to sort of evenly balance participation, especially in the follow-up round. So you guys did a great job of really trying to make sure that you were each participating. And I felt you also made sure that nobody was participating too much in that back and forth. So, keep up the good work on that. That's really, really great. I liked that you presented a variety of examples and talked about how they illustrated the tension between natural rights and classical republicanism. One piece of feedback I have is that there weren't really transition statements between those, and so it was a little bit jarring for me to jump straight from public education and school choice into COVID. So it's not a bad thing to have a wide variety of examples, but just think about what, because I don't know what's coming next. Think about what your audience is going to experience along the way as you dive into them, and then that way it's clearer that you are using these examples as evidence in a broader argument that you're presenting. So again, you guys should feel great about just how well you did and how well you're doing as young people who care about civic engagement and who are getting through this really bizarre time in American history. So thank you, and I hope you all have a great day.
Thank you very much, judges.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.